Hey everyone, and welcome to Crushing Land for this week. And today we're going to be talking about a topic that's been kind of a hot topic in our group and something that different coaching students and others have asked about. And so we're going to tackle it for a little bit here. And that is the question of, should you put signs on your property for sale? And should you list them in the MLS, flat fee MLS? So we're going to go through both of them individually. So first, if you owned the property, if you own it outright, the answer for both is almost always yes. Every property that we own outright, almost every property that we own outright, well, every property that we own outright, we do put a sign on. Every property that we own outright, we almost always put in the MLS. The exception to that is just ones, well, there's exceptions to both. The exceptions to the ones we don't put signs on would be like ones that are gated or just aren't going to have any traffic. You know, sometimes you buy these rural lots that are in the middle of nothing, you're not going to put a sign on that. But anything with traffic, we put a sign on. And then when it comes to listing it in the MLS, again, unless it's just something that we know is a very, very quick play on a Facebook Marketplace or something like that, it's going flat fee MLS for like $100 and we're putting it out there. Even if it's a $10,000 piece of property, people say, well, those are more likely to sell on Facebook or something. And we may test it for a few weeks, see how it goes. But if it doesn't sell, then we'll stick it on the MLS and then move it that way. Again, if you even if it's only a $10,000 piece of property, you might be talking about $100 to put it out there. You might have a couple thousand into it. If you own it outright, it's still worth doing that. I had a piece of property that I had out on Facebook Marketplace that was a clear Facebook Marketplace property, and I was getting a lot of interest, but just wasn't getting it sold. It was only listed for $9,000. I put it on flat fee MLS and had a buyer within a week. Why does that work? Simply put, because of exposure. It's putting it out in more places. It's not to get agents. It's to get exposure. It's syndicating that listing out to numerous places. It goes on realtor.com. It goes on Zillow. You may say, well, you can put your own properties on Zillow. That's true. You can, but they're going into a different section. This puts it under agent listings, which is the main screen. And so because of that, you get more exposure, and that's what matters. So if you go on Facebook Marketplace, if you go on Zillow, if you go on Craigslist, those are all free, but you're only getting 3 spots, right? If you put it on the MLS for a flat fee, it's going out to dozens and in some cases, hundreds of places. I've had leads come from flat fee MLS listings coming from websites that I didn't even know the property was on. And people are looking at this property on a certain website and an email comes from them and saying that they saw it, and I know it's because of the syndication. So huge, huge, huge upside doing that. What if you don't own the property yet? Well, again, when it comes to signs, the answer is almost always no. There's laws that affect that. That could be trespassing. You'd have to have written permission if you want to put it in your list, in your purchase agreement with the owner of the property that you have the right to do that. You can do that. It would probably raise some red flags, though, if they were reading it carefully. Marketing the property and things like that are already in there doesn't seem to ever bother them. But if you put signage, it may. So again, we usually do not put signs on properties that we don't own. Flat fee MLS, we kind of test them generally. We put them on Facebook Marketplace or something like that. We'll see how it goes for a little bit. And if that doesn't work, then we'll put it in the MLS and flat fee it for, and it ranges. The lowest we paid is $95. The most we paid is $250. So it depends on the state. Now, the thing that happens when you don't own it is you need to have a couple different scenarios exist. One, the MLS has to be okay with that. Some MLSs just don't allow it, right? It's not any state laws or anything like that. It's by MLS, and there's multiple MLSs in each state. So in some cases, they just don't allow it, or they require certain things. So if that's the case, you need to know how to get around that or how to deal with it. It might be listing it at a neighboring MLS that doesn't have those requirements. If it's a statewide thing, it might be getting power of attorney on it, limited power of attorney. That's an entirely different subject on how you can do that with your sellers, kind of getting them in there and being able to agree to that to be able to list it. But in a lot of cases, it's just finding a flat fee MLS company that's okay with you listing a property that you don't own. So for example, on properties that in the same state, properties that we own, we use one company because we found them to be better We found them to be a little bit cheaper, just things that work to our advantage. If we don't own it, we use this other company. It still works, not quite as good, a little bit more expensive. So even in that scenario, we're using different companies. So basic bottom line is, if you own the property, almost always makes sense to have a sign put on the property. These are $20, $25 for sale by owner signs that come with stakes from Lowe's or something like that. You can send somebody out and they can do the work for you. I just paid somebody today $50 to go put three properties in a row. We paid them $50 to go pick up the signs at Lowe's, write out the things that we wanted, and take pictures of the property, because you do need actual pictures of the property for the MLS. So we just did that today with that individual, plus the cost of the signs, 3 signs and everything like that. So all in, it was like $120 for everything to put these signs in out on the property, and then another $100 to get it in the MLS. All right. So these are different ways you can do that. If you do own it, putting it out there. If you don't own it, take the sign equation out. You may still have to hire somebody to go take pictures, because the MLS is going to require an actual picture of the property. All you need is somebody to drive by and have a cell phone. It's very easy. We've done this numerous times, and you can, if they're not involved with doing any labor other than just driving by, you could pay even less. I've done this for $20, $25, have them go out, do this work, and then from there, you can have them go ahead and you can take that information and you can put it on the MLS flat fee to get more buyers. So 2 things in your arsenal that you should really be looking at that will up your exposure, up the buyers contacting you, and up your chances of selling a property. For example, I'll give you one example that just happened. I had a property that I had out and listed. It was on Facebook Marketplace and other sites for 3 weeks, getting interest, not a whole lot, put it on flat fee MLS. Within 2 days, 8 people contacted me, and I had people fighting over the property. Does that always happen? No, but it is a scenario. We actually ended up getting $5,000 more than we were asking on those properties because of that. So it is something that you want to be looking at. So use these things to your advantage. Keep growing. These are advanced strategies that we do teach. So again, if you're looking at the Land Riches Blueprint course or any of our coaching, these are things that we do teach and help you to understand and explain exactly how to go about doing these things. That way you can benefit, get the most buyers, and continue on and get more and more deals. So thanks for joining us. See you next week.